Let's talk about life, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the truth and consciousness, divinity. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about love. There we go. Okay, well, welcome to Spiritual Nerd, and I'm your host, Ninette Terhart, and today we are geeking out with Natalie Sudman. Thank you so much for hanging with me, girl. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So great to see you. And for those just tuning in, I'd like to read a little bit about Natalie. She worked as an archaeologist in the Great Basin States for 16 years before accepting a position managing construction contracts in Iraq. And it was there, as she was riding in a truck, when a roadside bomb destroyed the vehicle. And as a result of the severe injuries her body received from the bombing, Natalie had a near-death experience where she left her body and entered the spirit world. There it was decided that her work on earth was not done, and with the help of spirit guides, they repaired the body so she could re-enter it. And she has retained the conscious memory of what has happened, and during the time in the hospital, more details returned. So before this experience, Natalie was very skeptical of the paranormal, and this experience made her a believer and inspired her to write her book, Applications of Impossible Things, that is available on Amazon and Audible. And I just want to say thank you for the courage to write this book, Natalie, because I loved it.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Fantastic book. And, you know, I want to start off right away with saying I really was fascinated at how you described the things that you were sensing and feeling and experiencing while you were in that blink environment. And we'll talk more about that. But you had such a beautiful way of describing things. I could really feel that I was there in the most possible way that I could, being in this plane and having that limited understanding. But Can you talk a little bit more about that approach? I mean, it was just so bang on for me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Well, actually, I would say you're right that I was kind of skeptical of psychic things and metaphysical things, but I was also terribly interested in it. And I had had a lot of experiences in my life before this one. So to me, a skeptic doesn't mean you don't believe any of this stuff. It means you examine each time something happens and you go, was that really something, or was it, you know, the world acting in some way? So, but anyway, I had many years ago, I had picked up a couple of near-death experience books, and I remember being kind of irritated with them because I felt like they spent all their time telling me about the accident or the illness or whatever got them to the near-death experience. And then the near-death experience was just really short. And then they spent a lot of time on the aftermath. And I'm like, you just went to Timbuktu and you told me all about the flight there and the flight home, but you didn't tell me anything about Timbuktu.
Right.
And so when I sat down to write my book, I thought, well, what I really want to do is take people there. I want them to feel like they are there or were there, or get them as close as they can, so that a fear of death maybe is released or relieved, or that fear of not knowing what's possible or what may be coming. Maybe this takes a little bit of that away. Yeah. And I think it's a major fear for a lot of people, even if it's not necessarily articulated. I think we don't like not knowing what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, we're humans.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to describe what I had experienced, and still, you know, actually leave enough room for other people's experiences as well. I don't think we all experience the same thing. Right. I think that the universe is infinite, and infinite is infinite.
A lot of
we could all have different experiences, you know.
True. Now, in chapter 6, you talk about your R&R, which I really love that chapter because I feel, I mean, for me personally, that really encapsulated so much of the, that, simultaneously you're resting, like you said, it's like centuries have gone by, but at the same time, other aspects of the mind were being very aware of other things simultaneously. And I love how you described how you fold in on yourself, but not in a contractive way, in an expansive way. Can you talk more about that?
I think that, yeah, I don't know any other way to describe it. The further you go in, it's almost like you turn inside out or something. Instead of things going contracting, suddenly they expand and you're in an infinity. And I think that probably people who have been meditators for a long time would have probably experienced the same thing. And I'm sure other people, I don't know, other NDEs or other people who have had some kind of profound spiritual experience may have experienced it too. I think that we've been trained into this kind of linear thinking that things go from smaller to bigger, things go from below to above. Things only go one way. And I don't think they do.
No.
I think that things are multidimensional, and just like when you go out, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I think you can also turn in, and it also gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right. Wow. I love that. Now, Natalie, how would you say this has changed your everyday life, like an everyday life for every day for Natalie?
I guess the biggest one for me, I've always been a little bit of a depressive, and since this incident, I haven't had those kinds of depressions. I think it gave me a very probably a pretty solid touch point to go, well, it doesn't matter if things are not that great right here, right now. It just doesn't really matter because it's a blink. It's an instant. At some point, I'll stand up, I'll walk off the stage and I'll be fine. So, I'll get through this. It'll be okay. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And, I know that may sound kind of flippant. I know there's a lot of people who have circumstances that it's not that easy to apply that to. But I think it can be applied to anything. I mean, I have chronic pain, and I was in Walter Reed for a month in pretty bad shape. And so I understand that it's not always easy to apply it, but I think that we have the choice to apply it. And that's really important to understand that we have that choice, I think.
That's wonderful. And Natalie, just so people tuning that haven't read your book yet, can you describe sort of the injuries that happened in that bombing, which now then, of course, you're contending with, but I just want people to hear on that human level,
Yeah. So my right heel was broken by shrapnel. My both bones in my right forearm were shattered, and some of the wrist bones were broken. And all the bones on the right side of my face were broken. I had shrapnel in both eyes. My right eye had blunt force trauma injuries that eventually led to a retinal detachment. The retina was all tattered. They did put that back on, but there was injuries to the muscles around the eye. So this eye doesn't really work. And let's see what else. Oh, I had holes in my skull here. in a skull fracture, which I always think is really funny. I mean, all this other broken stuff on my head, and they're going to add a skull fracture. Whatever.
Right. And it's something with your sinuses, right? There was a...
Yeah, I just about a year ago had sinus surgery because I had all kinds of shrapnel in my sinuses. But yeah, these holes in my skull exposed my frontal sinus, so that there are little plates there now.
Okay.
Covering that all up. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I also want to talk about, and thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I loved when you were describing what you thought you were seeing happening on the physical plane when you'd come out of the blink environment back into the plane, and because you were like that, those trucks weren't there, but then there was all these people there helping and doing things, and it was like, you know, kind of like angels, kind of. Am I on that right track there with that? It was like, oh, things are unfolding.
You mean when the guards were helping us?
Yeah.
Helping me after? Yeah. So I came back into the body, back into the truck, and did some things in the truck, and then the rest of our team came up, guards, who were helping us get us out of the truck, stop the bleeding, pack us up, call for the helos, helicopters, and all that kind of stuff. And I can't remember exactly how I described it in the book, but it always kind of felt as if I was just interacting with that one person, and whatever was going on around was, I don't know how to describe. So it was almost like it was blurred out. And, you know, later when I was talking to people, they were telling me things that were going on. I'm like, why didn't I see that? I was looking around the whole scene and I didn't see that, you know? So then I went back, when I go back into this, I can take myself back in there, and what I perceive is that each of us, in a sense, is on our own timeline. And we're each having our own experience, and those experiences intersect at certain places. And then they don't intersect at other places. It's a complicated kind of perception that I describe way better in the book, because I really take my time explaining in the book. It's kind of a hard thing to grasp, I think, because we think in a very linear way.
Right.
And, you know, it's almost sort of overwhelming to think that that we all might be living in our own story and our own timeline, and only occasionally actually coming together, you know, 4 or 5 of us coming together for a shared experience and breaking apart. It's like, that's like sci-fi overwhelming to me, even to think about.
For a lot of people, yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Now, you talk in the book about before you were like, okay, I'm going to go back in the body and I'm going to do my thing there. But and you asked for a sort of a remembrance to be with you. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And do you have that remembrance? Do you feel a presence, or what is that for you?
Yeah, I asked that I have help sort of, not just, I think, remembering the incident, but remembering who I really am, and who all of us really are, that we are infinite beings having an experience through this body. And I think I get that off and on when I need it. Like, I think in the book, I describe a couple of incidents when I was still in Walter Reed. So one day I was really kind of depressed about losing sight in this eye. I'm an artist, you know, I really want to be able to see out of both eyes. And I was kind of drifting along in those thoughts. And all of a sudden I thought, it doesn't matter. It's only for 40 more years.
I remember that.
And it kind of jerked me out of my reverie. I just started laughing. I was like, only 40 more years. But that's exactly the kind of thinking that happens from the perspective of the whole self, what I call the whole self, the higher self, that expanded awareness. It's only 40 years. It's not that big a deal.
Right.
And I get moments like that. I still get moments like that sometimes I guess when they think I need them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't have it. It's not every day. And I think that a lot of people get things like that, coincidences, haha.
Right.
Some people feel their loved ones who have passed, they turn on the radio and it's the same song every time, or they know that butterflies mean their loved one is around and they see them in the strangest places. I think everybody has some kind of everybody has the capability of paying attention. And when you start to pay attention, and when you say to yourself, wait, what if I really am more than my physical body? What does that mean? What does that mean for my reality? How might my reality change if I really let that sink in? I think that then reality begins to meet you.
Right. Exploring more of these other
Mm-hmm.
aspects of our mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely changed for you after this experience. I'm sure you sort of.
Well, it really ramped things up for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Would you say now that do you participate in a spiritual practice for yourself or anything daily or?
I would like to say yes, but I'm really an undisciplined person. So I do meditate, and I think meditation is huge. I think it's huge for people. I don't do it every day. I do some yoga practice. Again, I'm in and out with it. I do readings for people, and because I do that, I do have some rituals of getting ready for that and clearing myself after that. So that's probably the closest thing to something that I make a definite practice. I mean, I have to do that, or I'll kind of lose the plot.
Right. And the reading, so did you start this after this experience, or was this something you've always sort of been interested in?
I started doing it about 10 years maybe before I was blown up. And I was just doing it for friends. I don't even know how I got started. I think somebody just asked me to do it. I'm like, why do you think I can do that? And then I kind of did it.
Wow.
So, and then after I got blown up, someone called me up and said, I was told you can do a reading for me. And I started doing them, and
wow.
Yeah, it kind of snowballed.
Are you offering this now on your website or?
Yes. Yeah. On the blog, traceofelements.com, there's a readings page that people can go to. Yeah.
Wonderful. Because I want to put that up on the video so people can get a hold of you.
Thank you. Yeah. I have quite a long waiting list, but I'm happy to add names to the waiting list.
Wow. That's fantastic. And do you, because I know when we were chatting prior in 2019, you were traveling a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like to travel. I think it's really fun. I do a little bit less of it now because I've got a house and some property and 2 cats that really don't respond well to cat sitters. So, so I don't go as much as I'd like to, but yeah, I like to travel.
So Natalie, what would you share with somebody that, is sort of trying to figure out stuff in that spiritual realm, and you've had quite an experience? Is there anything you could share that might alleviate a stress or a concern or something?
I guess I'd say be kind to yourself. I think we tend to really be critical of ourselves and we have expectations, whether we think we do or not. We're like, oh, I want to be enlightened. And I always want to say, don't want that. How about wanting to be a kind person? And that includes kind to yourself, love yourself. Find a way to love yourself, to accept yourself, and to really know yourself, to come into an experience of who you are and what you are. Because when you do that, there's going to be no more effort. You're not going to have to try to understand the world. You're not going to have to try to love other people. You just will.
Right.
It all starts with loving yourself and accepting yourself and finding that affinity and that affection for yourself. So be kind to yourself, be patient, be compassionate, be good to yourself. Yeah, I think it's important.
And you also, I know you're an artist, and are you doing more artwork, and what is the format of that?
Yeah, I just am getting back into that. I moved about a year ago, and it's taken a while to kind of get settled in. So I'm just getting back into some painting, oil paints, which I don't really use in a traditional way. Abstract oils, and I just started playing with some alcohol inks with the oils. I don't know if that'll lead anywhere. I also do quilts. So all of that can be seen on the nsudman.com website. But
Okay.
Yeah, I play around.
And are they
I like to play.
Sale? Can people purchase? And
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're for sale. I don't know. I think some vague prices are on the site. I used to have a gallery, and the guy retired. So now I don't have a gallery. So I'm kind of haphazard about keeping up my website and things like that. But people, if they're interested, they can certainly inquire, and I can give them more information. Thanks.
Okay, because I'll have all that on the video so people can get a hold of you.
Okay.
And we're going to finish up here, Natalie, but my last question is, what's in the future on this plane for you? Any more books, or are you going to be doing talks or anything of that sort?
I have a few more interviews coming up next month. I try to avoid talks. I'm not a very enthusiastic public speaker. But I got a couple of books in my head that I need to just sit down and write. So hopefully this year I will do that. If not, next year I may just kind of clear out my schedule for a while and just concentrate on that. But I'm hoping to at least get one more book out this year.
Oh, that would be great. I just absolutely loved this book. I got turned on to by a friend, and I got it on Audible because I really love to listen and drive and whatever. And it's just written so well. And again, just to emphasize those who are listening, the way that Natalie describes the experience, it just really rings a lot of bells. And it's really almost like you're there as much as you can be there while listening on this plane or reading on this plane. So thank you again for just a fantastic piece of literature. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I want to say thank you, Natalie, for your time and, of course, your courage and honesty. And I'll have all your stuff on the video so people can get a hold of you for readings and your new books coming out and your artwork. I just think it's fantastic. So keep doing what you're doing, girl.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and it's been fun talking to you.
Great chatting with you. Take care, Natalie.
Thanks.
Well, I want to thank Natalie Sudman so much for that awesome interview, and her book is fantastic. I'm going to highly recommend that you pick it up. Amazon.com and Audible.com. And again, I look forward to the next time when I'll be geeking out with you.
Let's talk about life, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the truth and consciousness, divinity. Let's talk about God.